It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about a cookbook on cooking with the saints is Fernando Flores. Thanks for being here, Fernando.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you very much for having us on this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. So you've traveled all over the world. You used to work for, or maybe you still do, with the United Nations?
I still do.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm curious, you're also a foodie, so what's the craziest thing you've ever eaten?
Oh, wow, Kyle, that's a dangerous question to ask. I have had the pleasure of traveling around the world, and I've pretty much done anything that is offered to me as long as it's fully cooked. I'm game to try, and so yes, I have tried roasted ants in Colombia, for instance. They have these ants that taste like popcorn. It really, really does taste like popcorn. I've had caterpillars in Angola. I've had termites in Africa. So yes, I've been there.
What's the best thing that you've eaten, or your favorite kind of food?
Oh, no, now that's a different question. Totally.
Not much overlap there.
Probably not. Though I will say, all of those items, none of them tasted horrible. None of them were things that I, immediately spit out and said, "Oh my gosh, I'll never do this again." There really are. There, all of these foods out there. And actually, there were other foods that I had in Angola, for instance. Porridge made from corn, which you would think is a fairly straightforward thing, and I just didn't like it. They smoke it, and it just had this weird, smoky, earthy flavor, and so even something as simple as corn that everyone is familiar with can be turned into something that's not exactly the palate that we're used to.
Sure.
But for me personally, my background is my mother's from Colombia, and for me, Colombian food is probably my weak point. I can really enjoy that.
And you have some Colombian food in the cookbook as well. How did you get started connecting saints with cooking?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So actually, the cookbook was not something that originally came about as an idea. I became involved in a parish program, a parish outreach evangelization program at St. Veronica Catholic Church in Chantilly. My co-author, Alexandra Greeley, had started a few years before this program where she was tying saints, and in a way to bring people into the church and interested in the church is through her saints, and the best way to do that is through its food. And so Sandy, as what we call her here in St. Veronica, Sandy had approached the pastor at the time, Father Hathaway, who is a real big foodie. He loves his food. She approached Father Hathaway and said, "Hey, she's a retired cook. She's written 35 cookbooks and done all this. Cooking is her deal." And she said, "Look, I'd like to do this cooking class Saturday morning." St. Veronica is a relatively new parish. It's this beautiful industrial kitchen, restaurant grade kitchen. Will you let us use it for a morning? We'll talk about a saint, we'll cook a meal, and that'll be that. And I got involved about 3 or 4 years later when she was looking for someone to come in and talk about a saint from Colombia. And through a mutual friend of ours, we were connected. And I was contacted by Sandy, and I said, "This is a great idea. This is a phenomenal idea. I love to cook. I've never been able to make it a life decision. I've always had a day job with the UN, but I like the idea. I'll be happy to help out." And Kyle, I was so just overwhelmed by the response by the individuals that came, that at the end of the class, I talked to Sandy and I said, "Sandy, I'd really like to continue helping you with this, because it's not easy. I mean, it's not easy organizing these once a month. We would develop a menu. We would develop, buy the ingredients and do the class and do the cleanup. No one likes to do cleanup after, Right. So Sandy said, "Sure, I'd love to have you help out." And so I was able to, for probably about 4 years, doing classes. And it was after one of the classes that one of the parishioners came up to us and said, "What are you guys doing with all these recipes?" Because, almost 10 years worth of recipes of different cultures and countries and saints. And Sandy and I sort of looked at each other and said, nothing. We have them on our computer. We're not doing anything. And the parishioner said, you know what, you guys really need to turn this into a cookbook, because this really is just a phenomenal, just a phenomenal idea and product, and, tried to get other parishes to use it as well. And so, Sandy looked at me and Sandy said, kiddo, that's what she calls me. She says, kiddo, if you're up for helping me, write in the proposal and this, that, and the other, then, we'll try. We'll put it in front of her agent and see what happens. Uh-huh. And we did it. We put together a proposal. I had beautiful pictures and this, that, and the other, and the stories of the saints. And we sent it to the agent. And miracles happen. And the second publishing house that contacted the agent, Sophia Institute, they bought the rights to it. And here we are today with this incredible cookbook. And we really, we pinch ourselves every time we pick up the cookbook, because, I hate to say this, but we kind of thought, parish cookbook, you sort of get these images of these, cardboard bound spiral, pages falling out type thing. Uh-huh. And Sophia Institute really just knocked this out of the park. It is honest to goodness, it's a Martha Stewart, quality pictures. So anyway, I don't know if the excitement comes through on the radio, but really, I got a smile from ear to ear when I talk about the cookbook.
Yeah. And you are spot on, because the pictures of the food are, the only way to word it is mouth-watering. Just looking through these pictures, like, man, that looks so good. I doubt mine would ever turn out looking that good. At least I wouldn't be able to stage it quite as pretty as you guys do. But also, like, images of the saints and just well laid out and designed. That's just a great book. What have you learned from putting this together, or how has your faith changed or grown throughout the process?
I was brought up in the church. My family is Catholic. I was brought up as an altar boy and, did the usual Catholic upbringing. I would say we're probably more practicing than your usual. We try to go to church every Sunday and whatnot. But I will say that once, we got married and this, that, and the other, and my wife is Catholic as well. But, you go through these ebbs and flows. And so for me, when my children began to be school age and we made the decision to have them go to a Catholic school, it was really a rebirth for me personally as well, because really, in order to be practicing and to show them that being practicing means, fulfilling and really, going to church and making an effort and doing volunteer work and being active in your parish, showing my kids and having my kids come to the cooking classes and having them learn about the saints. And I would definitely say one of the things, right off, it's very easy. I've learned about saints that I'd never heard of before. And so, for instance, Saint Filomena, who is a little known saint. And we've had some parishioners come in who are real devotees to Saint Filomena, and they spoke so passionately about the life and journey of Saint Filomena that, literally, there was not, you could hear a pin drop after that presentation. And we're talking about the participants here were not, they were a mix. We kind of had an age limit that we wanted the participants to be at least 11, 12 years of age, because they're working in the kitchen. This is, cutting, using knives, using the stove and stuff. And but we had participants really that range anywhere from 11 years old up to 70 years old. And when that presentation was finished of St. Filomena, everyone just wanted to learn more about her. And, if there's a beauty of this process and of cooking with our saints, and what this cookbook has now represents, is from that class, we had two young individuals choose Saint Filomena as their confirmation saint, and we had a couple who had come to the class, that they liked to come to the class just to learn to cook between the two of them and be together, and they named their first daughter Filomena. And so, going through this cookbook, when we were doing the cookbook, there was a time when the movie about the Japanese martyrs had come out. I guess it was about 2 years ago. Yep. And in the cookbook, we have St. Paul Mickey, and we learn, and just to be able to have that cultural context of the food, of the country, of the saint, it really just strengthens your bond with the church.
So can you take us through one of your favorite recipes from the book?
Oh, wow, Kyle, that's a tough one, but I will say probably one of my favorite recipes, and this is a 2-for-1 recipe. October 5th, Saint Maria Faustina. So Saint Maria Faustina is from Poland, and the recipe that we have there actually is of a cake. It's a cream cake that's fairly common in Poland, but it became even more popular and more in demand because when St. John Paul II went back to Poland after he had become, for the first time after he became Pope, he had commented to someone, either in a newspaper or radio or somewhere, that he liked this cake, this cream cake. And the legend goes the next day at his doorstep, there were hundreds of these cream cakes. And
careful what you wish for.
Exactly. And so ever since then, it has been known as the papal cream cake. And it's actually a really simple cake to make. You can go to your grocer and you buy pre-made pastry dough that comes with Pepperidge Farm. You can't miss it. You buy the full sheet version, and you take 2 of those and you prick holes in it. You bake them, lightly bake, and then you make the cream. And you put the first layer of pastry dough down, and then you put the cream on top. You have to do this in a 9 by 13 inch sided pan, so that you don't want the cream to fall out. Anyway, you put the cream in, and then you put the second layer of the pastry dough on top, and then you let it cool. And then you can cut it into squares, and you put some confectioner's sugar on top. Delicious. I mean, it's just really, and Kyle, I want to point something out that you mentioned at the top of the show, which was about, the food coming out exactly like the pictures in the cookbook. These recipes, we really went out of the way to choose recipes that would be very easy for the family to make. They don't require, really crazy, machinery or tool, any kind of special, instruments or utensils to make. And the ingredients, by and large, are fairly straightforward. And if there's ever an ingredient that we thought this might be a little bit tricky for someone to get a hold of, we always offer an alternative. And so, the home cook really shouldn't have any trouble making these dishes.
Well, and it goes along with a little bio of Saint Faustina and a little information about Saint Pope John Paul II as well, and a little background on it. And it looks so good. Like you said, these are simple recipes and they look delicious. The book is really well laid out. It's great information about the saints, something that you could do as a family to kind of get to know these saints. And it gives you an excuse going through the calendar saying, hey, today's October 5th. We should do this cake and have a reason to celebrate and to feast. So people should check it out. Where can people get a copy of the book?
Thank you, Carl. We really are trying to support our Catholic publishing houses. Putting out books these days is a dying art, and so we really encourage everyone to go to sophiainstitute.com, and they can purchase through there. And if they would like to purchase it directly from a store, you can find it in Barnes & Nobles and in your other major bookstores.
All right, again, Cooking with the Saints. You got to see this to really appreciate it. It's such a well-done book. Thanks so much for sharing it with us, Fernando.
Thank you very much, Kyle, for having us on.